In this video, I would like to present you the last Russian success in the Donbass. While doing so, I would like to grab the opportunity to talk about the interesting and important elements of the tactical level land warfare in nowadays armed conflicts. If you think my job worth it, please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. If you have anything to add, I am more than happy to see it in the comments. And now, let's start. However, before we could jump into the harsh reality of land forces operations, I want to tell you some important thoughts of mine. First, I want Ukraine to succeed, and it has multiple reasons. From the blurry point of view of morality, I wish that the invaded and long-suffering Ukraine could find a solution for a satisfying peace. From the harsh realistic point of view, however, of security studies and international relations, as a Hungarian citizen, I am convinced that for my country it is the best to keep the Russians as far from Europe as it is possible. I cannot highlight it enough that in this war, what is good for Ukraine is good for Europe, mainly in terms of security. But in this world, things are not happening according to my or any other individual's wish. The world, the system of international relations, and even this war, which is a tiny affair compared to the world's all problems, are extremely complicated matters with lots of interdependencies and unforeseen events. Therefore, making decisions based on wishful thinking without considering the reality is extremely harmful. If you really want to help someone you care for, honesty is number one. I think it is true from the individual interpersonal relations, such as family, up to international relations, such as helping an allied country. It is a completely false stance, but sadly a very strong one in the West to believe in false things such as Russian army is unbeatable, or the Ukrainians will reach the Sea of Azov by August 2023. Yes, truth hurts, but dishonesty kills. Therefore, in my previous and future videos, I think I have been, and I hope that I will be, as objective as open sources allow me to be. Well, after this philosophical detour, get back to the core topic of this video. This section of the front was a relatively quiet one in the previous months. It is no surprise, hence it lies between the two major Russian operational axes of attack, Pakrovsk and Andreyivka. But if we examine the situation from an operational perspective, we can clearly see that this silence was just a facade of great danger. The main Russian thrust southwest of Pakrovsk got stopped by minor counterattacks of the incoming Ukrainian reinforcements, and the famous 414th Drone Brigade, the so-called Magyar's Birds, and the terrain hampering the Russian logistics. While on the southern flank, after the cauldron battle of Ulakli and the incomplete capture of Andreyivka, the Russian attack also got stopped and the intensity of the offensive had been reduced. But this didn't mean that the Russians are beaten, even more so if we consider their well-known balance-shifting attack method. In this topic I already made a very detailed analysis, so for now I just limit myself to a quick review. The areas marked with yellow are the areas heavily influenced by the Russian offensives. Therefore, they are called area of influence. The areas marked purple are the ones where the Russian offensives do not have a direct influence, but if something happens there, it influences the Russians' operations, so it is interesting for them. Therefore, this area is called the area of interest. Now it is crystal clear that the tactical direction of Novopavlivka lies perfectly in the point of intersection of the two main Russian operational directions area of interest. The Ukrainian Hartitsia operational grouping should have realized the importance of this location. The intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance staff of this strategic formation should have made this analysis, of course, in a far better quality than I did. Albeit they had their hands full stopping the Russians near Pakrovsk and Andreyivka. But in the 2 weeks before the 20th of March, they should have identified this area as an important named area of interest, organized the reconnaissance and quickly improved the fortifications here. But, as you will see, it did not happen at all, or the quality of the job carried out was very, very low. The main reason of this problem can be clearly seen in this picture. These tactical level operations had been led and coordinated from the Russian side by the 90th Guards Tank Division. This formation was responsible for the attack inside its own sector, Therefore, this division could issue orders to its units and quickly change their center of gravity and exploit eventual successes within its own sector. While on the Ukrainian side the situation was more complex. The Ukrainians had three brigades, the 38th Marines, the 72nd Mechanized, and the 35th Marines in this actual sector. But above them, there were no tactical level higher echelon formation such as a division or army corps. They were, and as far as I know, they are still subordinate to the Ukrainian Hortitsia operational grouping. This formation is responsible for operations from Siversk down to Velika Novosilka. This formation has more than 60 brigades and individual battalions under its command and responsible for at least 4 hotspots of the front. Considering this dysfunctional structure, it is no surprise that the Ukrainian High Command did not have time and energy to focus on seemingly quiet sectors like this. To make matters even worse, the attentive viewers could recognize that in the sector of the future Russian main attack was the defensive area of the 72nd Mechanized Infantry Brigade. This unit had just been destroyed in Vuhledar. They should have been somewhere in western Ukraine executing intensive training of new recruits and resting the survivors of previous battles. Rebuilding and adequately training a brigade takes more than 1 year in peace, but in times of war it still should require at least 6 months. Okay, the 72nd got reinforced by the 91st Anti-Tank Battalion of the 153rd Mechanized Infantry Brigade, which by the way is another very bad practice. I mean randomly detaching and patching units together. Army units are not Lego bricks. In order to have adequate coordination, they would require weeks of common training getting to know each other. So I cannot do anything, just ask, oh God, why? If there would have been a Ukrainian division, which its recon staff officers would have analyzed the terrain and the enemy, and they would have made a correct situational template, I am sure that the events would have happened differently. Therefore, I call for the Ukrainian strategic level command to immediately stop the bad practice of randomly sending subunits all over the front line. And I also call for immediate forming of division and army corps, staffed with experienced brigade commanders and staff officers who are battle proven in the last 3 years. Either way, further losses are unavoidable. And now, back to the actual events. By mid-March, the Russians already captured Novoyelizavetyivka and Seribnya, thus creating a shallow bulge in the so far relatively straight Ukrainian lines. Knowing the Russians' love of bulges, this could have been the last big alert for the Ukrainian division, if it would have been existed at all. Anyway, enough of my moaning. The shaping operations of this video's main focus began on the 22nd of March. On this day, the Russians attacked the Ukrainian lines in the eastern perimeter of Nadezhdivka, while a Ukrainian troop rotation was going on. Troop rotation, or to say it appropriately, a relief in place, is a common and widely used military activity. I already explained it in one of my videos, see it in the top right corner, that the relief in place has some simple but very important rules. First, the new guys should arrive and promptly take over the positions and the ongoing tasks. Subsequently, the old guys, who are the relieved ones, can leave their positions only. Normally, a rotation like this must take place at night or limited visibility such as fog, dusk or dawn. But it didn't happen like this. According to rumors from the front line, or you can call it rumint, in this situation the relieving party was consisting of raw recruits, not knowing the details of the task, while the relief party were in a rush and they tried to hand over the tasks as fast as possible and get the hell out of the trenches. If it is true, this is a testament of serious disciplinary problems, which are clear result of poor training and poor leadership. To add some salt to injury, I would like to draw your attention of the location of this event. According to my deduction based on the terrain, this attack had happened near the sector boundary of two Ukrainian units. The Russians attacked during a rotation near a sector boundary, like 100 times before. The Russians did not reinvent the wheel. The Ukrainian command should get their act together and it would solve lots of their problems. The Russians had coordinated their actions well. Parallel with this attack towards Nadezhdivka, they executed another supporting attack, supported by a tank, which later got destroyed by the drone unit of the 59th Mechanized Infantry Brigade. But the result of this operation was that the Russians managed to advance and push the Ukrainians out from Nadezhdivka by the end of the 22nd of March. On the next week, the Russians shifted their center of gravity at the tactical level. They attacked towards the villages of Zaporizhia and Preobrazhenka. But all of their attacks got beaten back mainly due to the effective intervention of Magyar's birds. By the 28th of March, it was time for the Russians to shift their center of gravity once more and to attack at a one echelon higher level. On the 28th of March, the Russians deployed armored units rarely seen of this size nowadays. They utilized the concealment of the forested area between Nadezhdivka and Katlarivka and attacked with approximately a mechanized infantry company worth of forces. They advanced towards the crossing point of an important secondary supply route marked here as Objective Kilo. They also sent a mechanized infantry platoon, supported by at least one tank, towards Preobrazhenka. The advancing Russians were attacked by drones of the 59th Mechanized Infantry Brigade and Magyar's birds, and they caused at least 25% losses to the attacking formations according to video evidence. And this is all pretty normal nowadays. What is not so normal that the advancing Russian mechanized units did not meet with any considerable Ukrainian land forces resistance, not even talking about a counterattack. This can mean two things. 1. The Russians tried to bypass existing Ukrainian battle positions. This is false, considering the fact that in the days after this attack, we did not see any land forces activities in this actual area between Katlarivka and Preobrazhenka. It leads us to option number 2, which is that there were no Ukrainian units in fortified battle positions in this area. Actually, this is supported by another rumor that in this sector the private company responsible for constructing fortifications was much behind schedule. And it meant that when the Ukrainian units occupying hasty defensive positions in this sector realized what is going on, they did not put up a fight, just simply retreated to the next actually defendable line. Well, may I have another remark? I have no idea whether this rumor is true or not, but the units in this area had at least 1 week to construct fortifications by themselves. I mean dig trenches, lay mines and so on. The complete lack or the low quality of fortifications are another crystal clear signal of poor discipline, which is a direct result of poor training and leadership. I am sad to say that, but this is fact based on knowing how armies work. Whatever is the case, by the end of the 28th or 29th, sources are not 100% clear, the Russians advanced 4 kilometers deep and 3 kilometers wide. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a tactical level breakthrough, not the one you read about every day in the mainstream media. Okay, this is a minor operation compared to the scale of this war, but I can make some important and I hope interesting conclusions based on this case study. The very first is that this is what the breakthrough actually looks like. I mean defeating the defenders' first echelon company battle positions and force them to deploy their reserves. To the Ukrainians' luck, the Russian armed forces did not exploit their breakthrough. And the Russians did not exploit their tactical level breakthrough because they are clearly unable to do so. It has been widely proven in the last 2 years of the conflict. The Russian army had been transformed to use the balance-shifting attack method and the infantry assault group tactic. And they are right, because in the era of drones and naked battlefield, this is the way which they can have successes. The Russians are playing the same trick again and again. They shift their center of gravity to the perimeter of the area of interest of their previous attack. They try to attack during rotations and near sector boundaries between two units. If they manage to advance a bit, they try to slowly but surely exploit this gap. These are simple tricks, but until the Ukrainians cannot effectively counter them, these tricks will always succeed. The Ukrainians have serious problems at the strategic and operational levels. Albeit they were very successful in the Pokrovsk sector, about which I plan to make another video, and they were mildly successful in the Toretsk and Chasiv Yar sectors, but debacles like this are avoidable, thus even more tragic. Therefore, I think that repairing this dysfunctional military command system is their number one task. They should create divisions and army corps staffed with battle-proven brigade commanders, staff officers, and senior NCOs. I know that in Ukraine these peoples are in a short supply, but it is still a must. All in all, I hope that this video was informative and just mildly boring. I hope that I could present you how breakthroughs happen these days, contrary to the total nonsense of the mainstream media and wishful thinking. They are a matter of thorough planning, preparation, and exploiting your enemy's debacles. If you think my job worth it, please feel free to like and subscribe. And if you have anything to add, I am more than happy to see it in the comments. Thank you and see you soon.